Hi, everybody. Good morning. We're going to start. Thank you all for being here. I always think, and I know I say this every class because I really believe it, that there's no better way to start the morning than learning about Eretz Yisrael and connecting to it. Right now, it's really interesting. This country is just interesting. Last week was so sunny. I went to the beach one day. I put away my winter coat, put away my boots, and now it's snowy and freezing. I have everything here. Today, I get into different moods of what I like teaching about. Last week we did flowers. I'm still in the nature theme. So today we're going to do something else that has to do with nature. And I think that's always, I know, valuable to me because Israel is a country very connected to nature. And I still feel like I don't get out into the nature as much. And I think I'm going to start. Let me share my screen with you. I wonder, did you ever wonder what the world looked like in the times of the Avot, in the times of Bnei Israel coming into Eretz Yisrael? I know I always wondered what the Avot looked like. That I have no way to shed light on. But I wondered, what did they see when they looked at the world? And that's something we're going to explore today. The main question is, how can connecting to the landscapes of the past enrich our present lives? So that's our main focus. And the way we are going to answer that question is using 3 points. 1, how did ancient agriculture look? 2, what water sources can we find at the Sataf? The place in Israel we're going to explore today is called the Sataf. I'll show you where it is. And the 3rd question is, what can we learn about some of the 7 species? So these points are going to help answer our overarching question. And of course, discover a new place in Israel. If this is not new for you, then that's wonderful. I like reading and learning about the same places over and over and over because I always learn something new, a different angle. And if it is new, even more wonderful, now you have a new place to go and visit when you come to Israel. So the Sataf, one of the benefits of it is a lot of people, when they come to Israel, they usually stay in Jerusalem. I don't think there's ever a tourist that comes and doesn't go to Jerusalem from whatever religion, whatever purpose. And people like staying there, especially if they don't live in Israel, because they feel connected to Yerushalayim and in Israel and they want to stay there. And only a 22-minute drive west of Jerusalem, we get to a foresty area called the Sataf. This is what it looks like. It's a forest. Now, if you look at the ground, you see that it's very rocky. And in Hebrew, in the times of the Tanakh, would be called the Ya'ad. And the Ya'ad is not just a forest. It means a forest with thick trees, hard ground, a lot of times there are animals, and not really good for, let me just let someone in. And I want to open up with, we started the class with wondering what the land might have looked like if we could go back a few thousand years. And that's really what we're going to do. And I want to open up from Sefer Yehoshua. Now, the Pesukim I'm about to read, I really never knew existed. At least the story I didn't know well, definitely not in school, because usually when you learn Sefer Yehoshua in school, when you get to the section of the Nachalot, the Shevatim, the land being divided, you kind of skip through that, you gloss through it. It's a lot of lists of this Shevet, this tribe's land is over here, and this tribe's land is over there. So this story is really not known very well, and I think it's very powerful. So we're going to read it together. What happens is Yehoshua divides the land into all the tribes. And then Bnei Yosef, which are the tribes of Menashe and Ephraim, which is Yeshua's own tribe, he's from Ephraim, they come to him and they ask him, why did you give us the land that you gave us? We're so many people, it's not enough. Ani Amra, we're a lot of people. And I love Yeshua's answer. He goes, Im Amra vata alelecha hayara. If you have a lot of people, then go to the forest. He gave them what they were complaining about is he gave them a lot of mountains that had thick forests on it. And they said, we can't do anything with it. Because back then, also today really, but the most fertile areas is in the valley. That's where the rain goes, and now they're given mountains and they have nothing to do with it. They were really saying more in terms of agriculture and less in terms of like physically to live. They said, we can't do anything with this land. We have a lot of people. We need solutions and we can't go to the valley. because in the valley they're Canaanim with Rechev Barza, with iron chariots. And he tells them, he hears their claim, and he says, Ki har yelach ki yarhu uvereto vayu lecha tasotaf. If you need more space, go to the forest, which is in your land, and cut the trees. That's what he tells them. And I love how the fact that it's his own tribe that's coming and saying something doesn't mean anything. He's not like, oh, you're my tribe, let me help you. And he's, okay, you have a challenge, so deal with it. Do something about it. And what did they do? What is the solution? How do you do agriculture on a mountain? And I want to now discuss what the issues are with the mountain. So how do we work this kind of land? Now, here we have a mountain of dirt. When it rains, what happens is the water all goes down the mountain with gravity, and it pushes, if there's loose things in the past, it pushes it down, which is why the fertile area is down. And if you try to grow something on the mountain, it might get washed down. So how do we stop that? And the solution they came up with, you could see them all over Israel. The solution dates back thousands of years, not only in Israel, you could see in other parts of the world as well. And I'm going to show you a picture from other parts of the world. The solution that the Shabbatim came up with, and we even see references to this later on in Sefer Yeshayahu, and in the times of the Avot, this is what they did as well. Something called in Hebrew terasot, or terraces. Notice how it steps on the mountain, and that solves the problem of the rain washing things away, because what they would do is they would build these little stone walls, and really throughout the country you see them, little stone walls with the cracks. So now if the water is trying to wash things down or go all the way down, it's stopped by the wall. So this was a solution that they came up with. And the Sataf, which we're exploring today, that's what one of the ways they advertise themselves is they said you could come see historical agriculture, because it's really, really it's well preserved. Plus the state of Israel, they also did work on it. In other areas, it's not so well kept, but they said, we want to show people, if you go back a few thousand years and just look, this is what they saw. So that was the solution they came up with. Now, I Googled terraces, and I found the coolest picture. I don't know if anyone has ever seen this in real life. On Google, they said they call this like the 8th wonder in the world. So these are rice terraces in Vietnam. So, and terrace, that method was used all over, and look how beautiful it is. It's just, I want to just go and just lie down in it and hug it and lie on it. It's really beautiful. So I wanted to just share that with you as well. Now, there's two agricultural concepts which are really crucial to understanding the ancient world, and especially the concept of idol worship, avodah zarah. I remember learning in school, when people worship idols, it's like, I don't understand. Why are they bowing down to an idol? It's made of stone. Can't they see? How do you think that's going to help them? And in our modern eyes, as a child, I couldn't understand it. I said, how dumb are they? Why are they doing that? And now I want to try to give you a different perspective on it and try to explain it. So here's the concept I want to teach you today. There's something called chaklaut ba'al, or in English, dryland farming. And chaklaut ba'al, chaklaut means agriculture. Ba'al, we'll see in a minute what it is. Means husband, but here it means something else. Refers to crops that grow from rainwater. Fruit trees, we see here a pomegranate tree and a fig tree. Wheat, there's no, in Israel you could see a lot. I know not anytime, but a lot of times when they plant flowers, like the city of Jerusalem, there's a park in Jerusalem called Gan Sacher, and they did a lot of work fixing it up, and they planted flowers. And next to the flowers, they have irrigation systems to give it water. Now, no one's going to sit and do that to the field of wheat. So all these crops are crops that rely on rain. And you see that raindrops falling down. All Shivat Haminim rely on rain, on this kind of irrigation. Now, I said Baal means husband, but here it means something else. So if you look to the right, you see the statue. This is the Canaanite god known as Baal. And to the left, these figurines, these statues, are his wife named Asherah. And the way it works, so Bnei Israel, they come into Eretz Canaan, and they don't have experience with working the land. They were just in the desert for 40 years where they experienced food fall out of the sky. And now they need to work the land and they don't really know how to do it. And who do they see? They come upon the ancient Canaanites, the Canaanim, and they see they have these fertile fields and they're doing really well. So they speak to them and they say, how do you get things to grow? What's the secret? What do you do? And they tell them, well, there's this god, his name is Baal, and he is the rain god. And there was a whole pantheon of gods. Baal was one of them at the top. Ironically enough, the top god of the Canaanim, his name was El. And I say ironic because we know that when we speak about God, that's another name that we use, and that was also the name of the top god of the Canaanim. So Baal was high up there, and he's the god of the rain. And you see in the position, he has his hand raised in like a more well-preserved sculpture figurine, although this one really looks great too. He's sometimes holding a spear, and it's like a lightning bolt. He controls the heavens. And when your entire life and produce and crops are determined by the rain, you really need to make sure you can control it. So the Canaanim say, what you do is you pray to Baal and he gives you rain. Now, Bnei Israel are in Eretz Canaan and they're planting their fields and they need rain. It's very, very important. So what they do is they say, okay, well, we're not going to leave God because God is God. He took us out of Egypt. He was with us in the desert. We're not going to leave him. But we really need rain. And the Canaanim say that the way to get rain in this country, they know the rules, they were here, is through praying to Baal. So let's do both. Well, because it can't hurt. I mean, if they're wrong, but maybe they're right. So let's pray to God and to Baal. And that was exactly the issue when later on, we read in Sefer Melachim and Hara Carmel, Eliyahu, he asks them, and this line became in like Israeli Hebrew people use it when someone can't make a decision. He tells Bnei Israel, how long are you sitting and going back and forth? You can't decide. If God is God, go after him. And if it's the Baal, go after him. The Yah was saying you can't do both. You can't say you can't hurt, so we'll do it as well. You need to pick one or the other. And one of the things that I really find very powerful about the story is I ask myself, where in my own life do I see this? Am I straight in my relationship with God? And I want to give you an example. I know, so I'm very, very grateful to God that I'm married. And most of my life I wasn't. I was single for a very long time. And everyone always wants to help. And there's a lot of things that people suggest to single people to do to get married because no one really knows why you're not married. So they say, maybe if you do this, it'll help, maybe if you do that. And one of the things that a lot of times I would be at a wedding and they'd say, drink from the wine. If you drink from the wine, it's a sigula to get married. And now everyone approaches it a different way, but for me, it bothered me because I said, I feel like it's similar to Baal worship. I'm either serving God or I'm not. I can't, and what's the thinking? It can hurt, you never know. Drink from it. But I was playing this story in the Navi and I said, but what do you mean? This is saying I'm praying to God and I'm doing something else because it can't hurt. I said, that's exactly the kind of thinking. Now, I think a person's intention makes all the difference because if I drink the wine because I like the taste of wine, okay. If I drink the wine and as I drink the wine, I pray to God and say, God, the same wine I'm drinking wine right now, please help me get married and I want to drink wine at my wedding, that's another thing. But if I'm drinking the wine because, I don't know what else to do, let me just drink it, maybe something happened and it'll work, then I think that's questionable for me. Now, I know everyone has different feelings towards it. That's how I felt as I grew up. And that's the whole concept of the story with the Baal and the how we get rain. Do we pray to God and something else? Or do we just pray to God? So that's one of the questions when I go to the Sataf, I like asking myself. And it's something that always needs to, I think, be thought about and analyzed, our relationship with God, because we're never just there. You get to a certain point and then you have to work on something else. And so that's one of the things I ask myself. Now, really, really cute. So this is a sign from the Sataf. There's three different paths that you could take. And what is one of them called? One of them is called Shviel HaBaal, the path of the Baal, because they most tour guides talk about the concept of Baal, and you could see, we're going to talk about another type of agriculture, which is very apparent to see in this place. So it's cute how even in the name of the path, they bring it in. Okay. Another concept I want to teach you. Now, I don't know what it is in English. If anyone knows, feel free to write to me. I'll explain what it is. I mean, they have this concept in America, in the world, but I just don't know what the proper term is. So they have something in Hebrew, chaklaut Baal, which means that you agri crops that you need the rain for, named after Baal, the god of the Canaanim. And now we have something called chaklaut shilchin. Shilchin from the word lishlawach, to send. Now, when you look at this picture, you see crops growing in the field. And the way they're getting their water is that this guy that's working the land, he's not hoping they're going to get rained on. He's sholech, he's sending the water to them. You see over here the water flowing. And if you look back a little bit further, you see this pipe with water coming out. Keep that in mind because we're going to see where the water is coming from. And that was also one of the ways that when the Jewish people needed crops, certain crops, they had to know which needed water like this and which could have water from the sky. And in general, anytime someone was able to grow crops like this, it was more valuable because not everyone knew how to do it. Things such as lettuce, broccoli, cabbage, those are all examples of chaklaut shilchin. Now, I was here a few days ago with my friends. That's part of what gave me the idea to talk about it. And I'm going to show a few pictures later from it. And we're looking at the fields and we said, who owns the fields? Why are they just random fields? Because when you go on a hike and you're in a nature reserve, you don't really expect to be fields. And actually, this is really interesting. I never heard about it in any other place. They rent out the fields to people living in Jerusalem. So if they want a vegetable field and they don't have room in their house or anywhere else, they actually rent the field. And there's 2 families that live on the reserve and they maintain it. So that's what those fields are. And it's just so beautiful to see. Now, where does the water come from? I told you to remember the pipe. So you guys see here this big pool of water. The water comes from that. And then this pipe that's connected to it and leads to the field. But where does this come from? And it leads me to the next point. We said, what are some of the water sources on the Sataf, where we are? So I want you to look at this diagram. You have here trees, houses, grass. And now I want you to look at the next layer. So it rains. And then depending on the type of rocks, so it's not really so much soil here, it's really more rock. The water can either go through or not. And you have this layer over here and the water is going through and then it's all congregating in the mountain. Why is it congregating in the mountain? Because the next layer, this like yellow mustard color, water cannot get through. So you have all this water that's being collected. Now, a lot of times the water finds a way out because it's looking for a way out. And the Bnei Israel, what they did is they said, we want to take advantage of this. And they would dig a tunnel. So now think of how smart this is. They're taking advantage of the water stuck in the mountain because it can't go through the bottommost layer. And they're making a tunnel. Now the water is coming out. And if you look at this like pool of stones, it looks like the picture we just saw because that's exactly it. Now they have the water in here, they're collecting it. And now they can make little tunnels for the rest of the places. Now, if anyone is very familiar with the Pesukim of Shir HaShirim, Shir HaShirim talks about this. We have Dodi Yarad Legano, who's going down to the garden. And one of the terms used is Ma'ayan Khatum, a sealed spring. This is sealed because it's stuck in the mountain. And going to these places such as the Sataf and having Shir HaShirim in one hand and reading the Pesukim of what Shlomo HaMelech is talking about helps you understand more. I have another very cool picture, which I want to show you to help us understand even more. I remember for the tour guiding test. So in Hebrew, this is called Ma'ayan Shechava. I also don't know what it is in English. And they made us memorize how exactly is it formed, all these different names of things. I'm grateful now for knowing it. But then it was hard to memorize. So the Sataf, to reiterate, is west of Yerushalayim. You drive 20 minutes to the west and you get to this beautiful foresty area. So I like this picture. Again, it's really nice. You have the trees, the rocks, the water is able to go through, can't go through the next layer, goes into a pool all the way at the end, and then it flows. So that's how the water works in the Sataf. And this picture I love. So now we're putting everything together. We're putting the water that they got from the mountain, that they smartly got, and the terraces. And look how cute that the water is coming out through these tunnels, watering the fields. Look how nice and organized it is. And what they have over here on top, so you notice there's no water coming out because this, based on this diagram, are fruit trees. So they need water from the rain. So that's about water sources. If you look inside over here, there's two pools of water, like where they come out of the mountain in the Sataf. One is called Ein Sataf, one is called Ein Bikura. And it's really, really fun place to take kids because I don't know how often in your life or in your kid's life or in your grandchildren's life, you get to go into like a cool cave with water. And it's such an exciting experience. Everyone gets a flashlight and it's not very deep. But if you notice over here on the floor, water is flowing. Now the water is dripping down because the layer of rock on top, water can pass through. But on the bottom, the water can't get down. So that's how you have the stream. And you see here this hole, this is how you would get into the tunnel. And you see a little kid coming out. So he's brave, he doesn't have a flashlight, but it's a really, really fun thing to do. And the water is always cool. So we spoke about ancient agriculture. We spoke about the water sources of the Sataf. Now for one of my favorite, everything's my favorite. Anything that has to do with Israel is my favorite. We're going to talk about some of Shivat Haminim because this hike really has everything. So the 7 species, Eretz Chita u'Seora, v'Gefen v'Te'ena v'Rimon, Eretz Zetchem u'Dvash. So we have wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranate, olives, and dates. Dvash is Dvash Tamarim, not from base. So here's a beautiful picture of them. One of the things you will see as you hike along, what you're looking at right here is an ancient wine press. You see there's holes on the ground, so they would step on the wines. This is from the Byzantine period, which is right after the Romans. The Romans destroyed Beit HaMikdash, then we have the Byzantines. So they would step on the grapes, and then the wine would like flow into these holes, and then they take it out. Now, right now, today, there are no vineyards on the Sataf, but if there's a wine press that we find on the mountain, it means that back then they were growing wine because you want to do the wine press close to where the grapes are. And now I just want to talk to you a little bit about grapes. I think I could give a Zoom just on grapes. So look at the vineyard and you notice how it's growing. Now, in order for grapes to grow, so it's really a remarkable, I guess I'll call it a fruit. It's really remarkable because it can grow in very cold, harsh conditions, and it'll make it and really succeed. There are optimal conditions to the grapes to come out better. There are reasons why certain wines are award-winning and others are not. And in order for a grape to be the best possible, if it has the best temperature and the best soil and the right amount of sun, it'll come out better. The Yehuda Halevi in Sefer Kuzari, he compares Am Yisrael to the grapes. He said Am Yisrael has things to keep it growing. They have the Torah and the Mitzvah, and that's really great, and they grow. However, if we want Am Yisrael to grow to their fullest potential, they need to be in Eretz Yisrael, because Eretz Yisrael is giving them the best soil and the best weather and the best everything, just like for the grapes. So it's just a wonderful connection how he does that. Another thing I heard, also attributed to him, but I haven't found it in his writings, is that grapes, to a degree, the harsher you are to the grape, like literally if you sit and beat the tree, it'll grow better. So to Am Yisrael, they go through all these trials and tribulations and hardships, and in the end they come out great and stronger. So that's one thing I wanted to say. How valuable are grapes and wine? This list over here are verbs that are used in Jewish literature in connection with grapes. There's always over 40 verbs on the list. I myself don't understand all of them. Plus, I haven't yet worked on a vineyard, so I don't know everything involved, but there's tons of work involved. I already spoke about this. I'm going to be with Levine, Am Yisrael's connection to grapes. Right, we want to get these great grapes. Am Yisrael needs to be in their land. Now I have another thing I want to add about the grapes, which is really beautiful. So notice them growing. They're growing in a line, and they're being supported by metal poles. No one growing grapes just says, okay, grapes, do whatever you want, I'll take my luck. They really want the grapes to be in a certain way. And Abarbanel, he writes a commentary. In Sefer Yeshayahu, there's this parable given about a vineyard and it talks about all the like intense work you need to do to a vineyard. And on that section, I'm not sure what Perek it's in, Abarbanel comments, and he says that most trees, they have the height that they're going to get to, they have the width that they're going to get to. It's not really a surprise. Like apple trees are usually around the same height. You can have one a little bigger and a little smaller, but you pretty much know what to expect. So he said, grapevine, you don't know at all what to expect because it's naturally in its DNA of the grapes, it's not limited by space. It's not where it could go. It could go anywhere. And people, they make the sticks and the metal and the poles for it to lean on, and the grapevine will grow in conjunction with it. It'll lean on what it's on. So we said when Bnei Israel, when they rely on Avodah Zarah, idol worship, and this connects back to what we were talking about Baal, the direction for them to go, for the grapevine to go, when they're leaning on this, is only down. But when Bnei Israel are relying on Hashem, the direction knows no limit, and they go up and up and up and up. So that's, I think, another beautiful idea. He talks about Bnei Israel believing in God and connecting to Him, and you get all this from grapes. Now, this picture over here, you see this little, it looks like a well almost. It's not a well, it's called a shomerah, and it's made of stones. This tree is a fig tree, not connected to what I'm about to say, but in case you're wondering. And in parable in Sefer Yeshayahu, it says one of the things that they used to do to work when they want to set up the land to grapes is there's a lot of stones and they need to get the stones out of the way. So they take the stones out of the way and then they use it to build this little watch house. And that's something that we see along the path in the Sataf. So someone that's there, one, they could open Sefer Yeshayahu and read the parable. It's so connected. They could talk more about grapes. And I love how Eretz Yisrael naturally lends itself to all these meaningful conversations and thought-provoking ideas. Okay. The next, this is the next and the last one of Shivat HaMinim that I'm going to talk about. I'm not doing 7. This is a fig tree, and look at the leaves, how they're so wide and beautiful and nice. When we talk about figs, I think the most appropriate place to start would be with the first reference in the Tanakh of a fig. If we open up Sefer Bereshit, after Adam and Chava ate from Etz Hadat Tov Bara, they realized that they were naked, so they took, it says Alet Te'ena, so they took leaves of a fig tree. I feel like this is a good trivia question to ask people, and they made themselves belts. And then after, it says God made them kotnot od, He made them clothing from leather, but the fig tree leaves were used as clothing for them, so that's, I think, fun to start with. Now, I don't know if you know how a fig grows. It blew my mind when I learned, and I'm just gonna say wait till the end, because if you're gonna, don't sit in and think about, well, am I gonna still eat figs? Am I not? Wait till the end. Now, you don't have to read, you can read this diagram if you want. I'm gonna explain the whole thing, what it says. So here is the amazing life of a fig tree, and the story I'm about to tell you is a story of relationships. There are about 900 types. So in order for a fig to ripen, it needs the help of something called the fig wasp. And you see a picture over here of a fig wasp. Now, here's an amazing statistic. There are about 900 species of fig trees and 900 species of fig wasps. Each fig wasp matches its specific species of fig. Now, what happens? So we're going to start over here. You have the wasp, and it's in the fig, and it lays, it pollinates the flowers inside. There's male and female flowers inside. Now, time passes, and the males emerge. These like little balls are called the gall. The males emerge. Now, the male wasps are blind and they're wingless. They spend their entire life in the fig. They never see the sky. And they have only one purpose in life. The purpose in life of the male wasps are to create escape tunnels for the females, so the females could go and pollinate. So the males hatch, and they mate with the females, and the females, here's like the amazing thing. The females aren't even fully hatched yet. They're still in their gall, and the males are mating with them. And then the males die. So they spent their whole life in the fig. They made their purpose. They made an escape tunnel. The males die. Now the females emerge, and the females are very grateful to the males for having drawn them an escape route. And the females escape from the fig. Now they're flying, looking for unripe figs because they want to go in to pollinate. And then they find one. And over here, so ostiole, there's this small hole that's big enough for the wasp to go in, and that way it could go and pollinate the flowers inside. And here's another fact. The tunnel that the female goes into to go into this fig, the ostiole, the opening, it's very, very narrow. And the female wasp, she breaks her antennas and loses her wings in the process. It's a very arduous process, but she gets in. And then and as she was leaving this fig, she had pollen with her, and she pollinates the flowers. And then the whole cycle starts again. And now the males come out. When I read this, I go, whoa, who knew this was going on in the world? What if Shiv'at HaMinim? I'm glad I read about it. I have this dream. It didn't happen this year. But part of what spurred me to read about this is my dream way of celebrating Tu B'Shvat is to have Seder Tu B'Shvat, that everyone eats from Shiv'at HaMinim. You go in order together. And ready next year, wherever and with whoever I celebrate Tu B'Shvat, I'm going to give them this homework. I'm going to have every person at the table do research on one of Shiv'at HaMinim. And then when we get to that one, I want them to explain, talk about it, because the more you know about something, the more appreciation you have. So this I learned about wasps. Now, the next natural question that lends itself is, can you eat figs? Because we know that you're not allowed to eat bugs. And I said that the male never even leaves the fig, and the female does inside. And according to the Torah, you're not allowed to eat figs. So I researched the question, and there are a lot of answers given. The first answer, which I think liked the most, was figs are one of the 7 species. And there's no way God would list it as one of the 7 species that we're allowed to eat from if we're not allowed to eat from it. So let's just start with that. Something else that I found is there's actually an enzyme that the fig produces, which it envelops the dead wasps, and it makes them disappear. So by the time eating the fig, the wasp has no existence there, no memory of it other than the fig is pollinated and ripe. So that was another reason that I found that it's fine. There are other ones. So look how good this fig looks, so nice and ripe. And something else that I want to add, I don't know if people get grossed out from thinking that there's a wasp inside the fig, even though when you eat it, it's long gone. Most figs today are actually not pollinated through wasps. There's something, I never heard of this word before, but there's something called parthenocarpy, which is artificial fertilization, and most figs today that you buy are fertilized that way. But that is my whole lesson on figs, and I think it's fascinating how God really, the way he created the world, that the figs need the wasps and the wasps need the figs. I think it's just marvel of creation. As you're walking through the Sataf, over here you see the fig trees. You'll also notice olive trees, another one of Shiv'at HaMinim. And if you come on the right time, you will notice almond trees. Really, really beautiful. They're in bloom now. I was there on Sunday. My friend Lisa took this picture. Look how beautiful the flowers of the almond tree. It's just Tu B'Shvat. Here are more pictures for your viewing pleasure. Look how gorgeous it is. And this is what one of the paths looks like. I feel like this is this garden or wonderland, secret garden. Like, how gorgeous is this? You have all the greenery. And I think I mentioned last week that in Israel, winter is the green. Beautiful to be out and about and hiking, and I had a wonderful time with my friends. Here's a picture of us. That's me in the middle. We're just sitting and enjoying the nature. Here also, I want to add the Sataf has a fantastic, fantastic view. So here were the fields that we saw with the crops, and you're looking out. Look how gorgeous it is. It's just inspiring to see how beautiful it is. And I want to summarize. Wondering, we said, what did the world look like in the time of the forefathers, in the time of Bnei Israel? And then we opened up the Sefer Yoshua and we read some Pesukim, and we saw that the Jewish people had a hard time dealing with this type of terrain that we see in the Sataf. And the solution they came up with was to make terraces, because that way everything wouldn't get pushed to the bottom. Terraces today dating back 4,500 years, and we see that all over the world as well. Then we spoke about two types of agriculture, Chaklaut Ba'al and Chaklaut Shikhin. Chaklaut Ba'al, we said, is fruit trees, all the 7 species, agriculture that relies on the rain. And then we spoke about Chaklaut Shikhin, where you send the water to things like cabbage, broccoli, lettuce. We discussed a Ma'ayan Shichava, where we have the water that's stuck in the mountain, and the Jewish people, they built a tunnel so the water could come out and irrigate the fields that needed it. Then we spoke about grapes and how Bnei Israel compared to grapes. We spoke about figs just now, an amazing story of the wasp. We mentioned that you can also see olive and almond trees as you're going to Sataf, and we also spoke about the beautiful view. Now, the overall question we were asking was, how can connecting to the landscapes of the past enrich our present lives? This is the landscape of the past. This is what they saw a few thousand years ago. How does it enrich our life today? So this is the way I see it. Now, there's a lot of ways to look at it. This is one. You go to the Sataf one morning, you take your family, instead of having breakfast in the hotel, you take breakfast to go, you drive 20 minutes, you're there. And if you're going just to eat breakfast there, that in itself is already worth it. When I was with the course, it was the first trip we ever went on, and the first thing we did was eat breakfast. And I remember, I keep a journal. I remember writing my journal after, wow, and the most amazing day. I'm eating breakfast overlooking this beauty. And whenever we eat breakfast in a beautiful place in Eretz Yisrael, you're overwhelmed by it, and you love Eretz Yisrael. And that's always a goal in itself, to love Eretz Yisrael. If your goal is just to take pictures, that in itself, again, is a worthy goal. But you might take it a step further, and you might look at the fruit trees. And that's going to remind you of the whole conversation we had of Baal, of where the rain comes from. And that might lead you to question your relationship with God. And are you straight with God? Are there areas to work on? Then you're going to see the beautiful fields with these type of crops and think of, wow, that's really smart of the Jewish people. They're very creative. They had a challenge and they dealt with it. Where in my life do I have challenges? Do I think creatively to deal with those problems? Then you can go to have fun into the tunnel of water. And then as you're walking, you'll see the ancient wine press and think of grapes. And then you could spend a long time thinking of how Bnei Israel are connected to, asking yourself, how committed are you to the mitzvot? How committed are you to the land of Israel? Then you see fig trees and think of how amazing HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, that he created the wasp to pollinate the fig. And you will also see, if you come in the right month, a shkedia, and see how gorgeous it is. And all of these topics, just from being in one place in the Sataf, and think about what it does for your life to constantly thinking deeply about these things. And even if you just want to go have breakfast, when I went with my friends, I have to say, we just had a picnic. We picked up stuff from the bakery, sat, had a picnic, done. And that was what we did. But the more educated you are and the more you know, the richer every experience is. And I want to leave you with a task. And I want to ask you, what areas or aspects of Eretz Yisrael do you want to know more about? I don't know why I never asked this before. If there is something specific, always write to me. I would love to research it and speak about it. And I wonder, what do you wonder about? What do you want to know? Thank you all for being here. I love being here. I love that you're here, and I wish you a wonderful rest of the day.
That was so different. Wow, I am impressed with what you came up with. And that fig, forget it. I'm not eating figs again.
They're mostly artificial today, pollinated.
Well, thanks for saying that. I remember that afterwards.
I wouldn't leave everyone stuck, because after I learned it, I'm like, I don't eat figs anymore. But
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
That was great.
Thanks, Ralph.
Thank you. I just looked it up. Vegans don't eat figs for that reason.
Who doesn't eat figs?
Vegans.
Oh, really?
Because of the wasp thing.
Wow. Cool.
There's a genuine fear.
Ralph, now you're going to find something on Instagram about figs and you'll message it to me. Because you know it always stops.
There you go. You got it. That was great. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thanks.